Welcome to Box Office Recap.
Today I'm going to explain the movie The Wolfman, released in the year 2010. The movie is set in the year 1891, where a man named Ben Talbot is walking through a forest at night. It's a full moon, and as Ben wanders around with his lantern alone, an unknown creature suddenly attacks him and kills him. In the next scene, Ben's wife, Gwen Conliffe, grows worried as Ben hasn't returned for a week. She approaches his brother Lawrence Talbot for assistance in locating Ben, but the latter refuses right away. The next day, Lawrence returns to his home, and on the way, he's approached by an elderly man who offers him a traditional stick. When he arrives at his house, his father John greets him and mentions that Ben was found dead the day before. Lawrence also learns that Gwen has already arrived for the funeral. The next morning, Lawrence goes to the butcher's place where Ben's body is kept. The butcher advises Lawrence against seeing the body, but he's adamant on bidding his brother one final farewell. Soon, he removes the cover from Ben's body and gets terrified to see its state. That night, a devastated Lawrence goes to a bar for a drink and overhears a group of men discussing the mysterious deaths in the village. Some say it was a bear, while others say it was gypsies, and one man says it was a beast. He also tells the story of a farmer who was killed by the beast 25 years ago, and how the farmer's wife has refused to go out on a full moon since then. The same night, Lawrence dines with his father and asks him about the animal that killed his brother. John assumes that it was a Bengal tiger, but he's unsure. He also reveals that Ben was the negotiator between their families and gypsies. Following this, Lawrence meets with Gwen and apologizes for his earlier behavior. He also hands over some of Ben's belongings, including a ring and a photo of Gwen. Lawrence then sits in a room, recalling a time when he and his brother were awakened in the middle of the night by a loud noise. Lawrence left the room to check, while Ben remained in the room out of fear. Soon, Lawrence learned that his mother had committed suicide. Because of this, he went into a mental trance and was sent to an asylum for treatment. Back in the present, the family attends Ben's funeral, and the next day, Gwen decides to return home. On the other hand, Lawrence decides to stay until he finds out what happened to his brother. Being a full moon day, John tells him to stay at home because he fears the murderer will kill him as well. Despite the warning, Lawrence goes to the gypsy camp and inquires about his brother. A few moments later, a group of men arrive at the camp and blame the gypsy pet bear for all the murders. Just then, a strange werewolf appears out of nowhere and begins attacking the people in the camp, causing chaos. Lawrence immediately grabs a gun and shoots, but he fails to hit the target. Soon after, the creature chases a young boy into the woods, prompting Lawrence to go after it. Deep in the woods, Lawrence doesn't have clear visibility due to the fog, and suddenly he is attacked by the creature. Fortunately, a group of men arrive and save him, but he is severely injured. He is then immediately taken to a gypsy camp where an elderly woman heals him. Meanwhile, a group of angry villagers confront the elderly woman to kill Lawrence, as he might also turn into a werewolf. However, she refuses, claiming that everyone deserves a second chance. After this, Lawrence is sent to his home. For a few weeks, Lawrence is unable to get out of bed and has frequent nightmares. Seeing him in this state, Gwen starts looking after him. One day, Lawrence finally wakes up and, to everyone's surprise, he appears to be fine. His paralyzed arms are functioning again, and his scars have healed quickly. Later at night, Lawrence goes to see Singh, their family's servant. Lawrence notices Singh has been stockpiling weapons and silver bullets in case some monsters come after them. It appears that the silver bullets are able to kill the beasts. Lawrence asks him if he believes in curses and the devil's talk about gypsies, to which Singh responds in the affirmative. The next day, an inspector named Francis comes to their house to question Lawrence about the previous incident. John forbids the officer from questioning his son, but Lawrence appears to be fine with it. When Francis inquires about the incident, Lawrence responds that it was a dangerous creature. However, Francis starts suspecting Lawrence's story, as he was once committed to an asylum. Hearing this, Lawrence ends the interview and asks Francis to leave. In the evening, Lawrence and Gwen are talking near a lake when he suddenly hears horse noises. He tells Gwen about it, but she cannot hear any of it. Here, we get to know that the werewolf bite has caused Lawrence's senses to multiply by 10 times. When they return home, they find a group of men waiting outside their door to take Lawrence away. According to the men, Lawrence has been bitten by the devil, and because it's the full moon day, he must be locked up or killed in order to get rid of the curse. When Lawrence refuses to leave, the men attempt to capture him forcefully, but his father arrives and threatens to shoot the men for trespassing. In the next scene, Gwen assists Lawrence in cleaning his lip wound and advises him to not listen to the villagers. When she touches his lips, Lawrence detects Gwen's heartbeat, causing him to refrain. When he returns to his room, he discovers that his wound traces have completely vanished. As a result, he starts believing in the unnatural curses and requests that Gwen leave for London immediately. Confused, Gwen inquires about its reason, but Lawrence simply responds that it's for her own safety. On the other hand, the villagers are preparing for the full moon. Several villagers gather to prepare silver bullets and bait to capture the dangerous creature. Francis notices this and decides to stay around to find out the truth. The same night, Lawrence sees his father roaming around alone and decides to follow him. After a while, he reaches a crypt beneath his mother's grave. When he walks inside, he notices a chair facing the wall with a picture of his mother on it. Just then, John approaches him and mentions that he died long ago with the death of his wife. After a brief conversation, John suddenly pushes Lawrence outside and locks the door. But before Lawrence can comprehend anything, he starts transforming into a werewolf. His howling sound is heard throughout the village, prompting Francis to chase after him. Unfortunately, Lawrence gets to the villagers first and starts slaughtering them one by one. After a while, Francis arrives at the scene and gets taken aback to witness the massacre. The next day, we see a bloodied Lawrence sleeping under a tree. Soon, he's awoken by his father, who mentions that he did a terrible job. Just then, a group of officers, led by Francis, arrives at the scene and apprehends Lawrence. This time, John does not object, as his son has been caught red-handed. Soon, Lawrence is brought to an asylum where he's tortured with various drugs, electric shock, and icy cold water. This causes him to hallucinate, and his health starts deteriorating badly. After a week, John pays him a visit in the asylum and reveals to him about his past. He reveals that several years ago he traveled to India to seek peace. There, the villagers told him about a boy who was supposedly a beast. Curious, he decided to approach the boy, but accidentally got bit in the process. After the incident, he immediately returned to London and initiated treatment. Unfortunately, the transformation started to take place, and on a full moon night, he turned into a werewolf and killed his wife. Because of the guilt, he locked himself inside the crypt every full moon for 25 years until Gwen appeared. He continues by saying that Gwen resembled his wife, but when she was taken away by Ben, he became envious. As a result, he started drinking heavily, and on a full moon night, he knocked out Singh and escaped the crypt. He then entered the woods and killed his own son ruthlessly. Hearing all this, Lawrence gets enraged and attempts to kill his father, but since he is chained, he can't do much. Later that night, the asylum doctor brings Lawrence into a room full of people. He wants to demonstrate to everyone that Lawrence doesn't have any powers and that he is simply delusional. However, when the full moon appears, all his theories are proved to be wrong. Lawrence starts transforming into a werewolf, and despite being severely restrained, he manages to break free and attack the people. At first, he kills the doctor, and then goes after the others. After killing several men, Lawrence flees from the asylum by jumping through the roof. As the night draws to a close, Lawrence reverts to his normal self and goes to Gwen. He reveals to her that he and his father are monsters, and that his father is the one who killed Ben and his mother. Hearing this, Gwen tells him that she can assist him in stopping it, but he refuses. Furthermore, he admits his feelings for her and expresses his jealousy because his brother had her. After that, they kiss each other, but are interrupted by a knock on the door. Gwen answers the door and sees Francis, who inquires if she's seen Lawrence. Despite her denial, the officers barge in and begin searching the place. However, they're unable to find Lawrence as he has already escaped. The next day, Gwen conducts research on werewolf cures and learns about the gypsy theory. Following that, she goes to the gypsy village and meets the woman who cured Lawrence in the previous attack. Unfortunately, the woman informs her that there's no cure to the virus, and that she is simply endangering her life. Meanwhile, Francis and his officers prepare silver bullets and begin searching the city for Lawrence. He directs his officers to split up and execute Lawrence as soon as they see him. A few days later, Lawrence arrives at his house and discovers that Singh has been murdered brutally. He then makes his way up to Singh's room and retrieves a gun and several silver bullets that are capable of killing werewolves. After this, he heads downstairs and confronts his father, who's busy playing the piano. When John approaches him, he pulls the trigger, but the gun does not fire. It turns out that John had already removed the gunpowder many years ago, as he didn't want Singh to kill him. Just then, the full moon appears and both father and son transform into werewolves. The two beasts then begin fighting, but John easily overpowers Lawrence. During the fight, the house also catches fire. This distracts John momentarily, and sensing the opportunity, Lawrence manages to kick him into the fireplace, causing him to burn. Lawrence then swings his powerful claws across his father's head, detaching it completely. Meanwhile, Gwen arrives at the place and sees Lawrence in his werewolf form. As he stares at her with vengeful eyes, Francis also enters the fray. Soon, Lawrence lunges at Gwen, but Francis manages to save her in the nick of time. Francis then tries to restrain him, but Lawrence bites him and tosses him away. Meanwhile, Gwen grabs Francis's silver bullet-loaded gun and flees into the woods. Soon, Lawrence notices her and starts pursuing her. After running for a while, Gwen realizes that she has no other way to escape. Hence, she points the gun at Lawrence and asks him to stop. Surprisingly, the beast recognizes her and freezes momentarily. Taking this as the perfect opportunity, Gwen shoots Lawrence in the chest, finally subduing him. After a while, Lawrence transforms back into his normal self. He then succumbs to his injuries, but not before thanking Gwen for everything. Soon, Francis arrives at the scene having been bitten. The movie ends as he turns into a werewolf and starts howling.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more recaps and hit the bell icon for notifications.